Hello and welcome to the Atlantic Debrief, the Atlantic Council Europe Center's internet show and podcast on the most pressing issues impacting transatlantic relations today. This is part of the Europe Center's Transatlantic Horizon series, which seeks to outline a productive relationship for the United States and Europe for 2025 and beyond. My name is Andy Bernard. I'm a visiting fellow at the Atlantic Council's Europe Center, and I'm honored to be joined this evening from Lisbon by Nuno Rogeiro. Nuno is a distinguished Portuguese journalist, author, and geopolitical commentator. Nuno reports regularly for the Portuguese television channel SIC Notícias. Nuno, it's great to see you. It's great to have you with us. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. The same.
Hey, we're here tonight to talk about Portuguese elections, Portuguese developments, and it's been a fascinating couple of weeks following the 10 March elections. So we're going to jump right in, and before we start analyzing like some of the results, how about we just kind of set the foundation of where we are today, since it's been a couple of weeks for our audience. It took almost a week and a half for all the votes to be counted. They hadn't needed to use the full time to get the overseas votes, but it turns out that it ended up being a three-party race. This looks like, with the center-right Democratic Alliance getting 80 MPs out of 230 of the Portuguese legislature. The Socialists came in second with 78. And then our upstart Chega party garnering 50 MP seats. The other 22 seats are divided amongst 5 other smaller parties. As I understand it, President Marcelo Rebelo de Sousa designated Luis Montenegro, who is the president of the Social Democrat Party, the center-right Social Democrat Party, which is the foundation, if you will, of the Democratic Alliance, to be the prime minister designate. But what does that mean? What's on his timeline? How are we going to establish a government? Can you first kind of tell us what's going to happen over the next week or so?
Well, as you said, Luis Montenegro, the head of PSD, is already designated as prime minister. He will present his full cabinet. I'm not going to go into something that could infringe any private conversation I had with members of cabinet, but I think it's going to be a pretty solid cabinet. Of course, as you know, it's a minority government, so it will have to navigate through very, I would say, delicate, if not to say troubled waters. But that's what politics are for. I mean, so it has to go into consensus in some matters. It will have to affirm principles in other matters. The bottom line is that if you look at the total composition of parliament, the so-called families of the right, so center-right, center-right, and if you want to know, extreme right, and we include liberals, we include people that are more close to authority-prone parties, all of them have an absolute majority at parliament. So that's what changed from 2022.
Okay, great. And the date that the government will go to seat, is that on April 2nd?
Yeah, so the government will take formally possession of its functions in April. But okay, this is going to be already announced in terms of composition of cabinet, so ministers and secretaries of state. I'm not going to help you speculate on how many there's going to be a smaller government or not, but I will insist it's going to be a pretty solid one.
Good. Okay, so why don't we then take the opportunity to kind of analyze the election itself and some of the wins in Portugal, if you will, and let's start with the center-right Democratic Alliance. So they had been in the opposition for 8 years now. And as we say here, a win's a win, even though they had 2 seats more than the Socialists, they're leading. So what part of their program resonated with the voters? And then, what's their strategy going forward to govern?
Well, I would say the first idea that we should stress is change. People wanted some sort of change. I'm not going here to say if the change is right or wrong. I'm saying is that if you look at the numbers, the sheer numbers, you see that, for instance, PS, that was until now the majority party, lost in these elections something like 500,000 votes, which is enormous.
Yeah, that's significant.
Yeah, PST won 200,000 more from last election. The big winner, of course, was Chega, what people sometimes consider a populist, sometimes a far right, sometimes other names party. So in any sense, it's a party that comes out of the establishment. And that's the most spectacular win, because not only 50 MPs, as you said, but also more 700,000 votes than in the last election. 700,000 votes in electoral universe, as the Portuguese one is enormous. The other parties that I think won the most, not only symbolical, but also because they became also a parliamentary group, I would select probably Livre, Free, which is a non-Marxist left party. They describe themselves more or less like that. That won 4 MPs and 130,000 votes more than in 2022. Of course, the question now is, will the families of the left unite? But even if they unite, they don't have a majority. And will the families of the right unite? Having a majority. The families of the right are basically AD, as you said, so the coalition that won the elections by 2 mandates. That is usually a center-right type of party, close to CDU.
Well, there's the Liberal Party too, right?
Yeah, the CDUs, the AD is like the CDU, CSU in Germany, more or less, grosso modo. Then you have the Liberals. The Liberals are essentially, the most close to AD, to the new winners. They have 8 MPs. And they got 40,000 votes more. 40,000 votes more than the last election. So it's not a big growth, but they have 8 MPs. And then you have, of course, Livre, the part mentioned, which is another part of the families of the right. That like in many families, sometimes you have relatives that you prefer not to present to the public.
Right. If we could take a second here, let's actually talk about the socialists, because there's lots of layers to unpack with the Socialist Party. I mean, they were in power for 8 years. They had an absolute majority out of the 2022 elections, and here we are 2 years later, and they're in second place. Behind the Democratic Alliance. I think Pedro Nuno Santos has said, "Hey, we are now the opposition." What's the Socialist Party strategy going forward? And do you think the myriad of alleged scandals, hurt them, or was it more of a non-issue?
Well, clearly it hurts. President Marcelo Rebelo de Sousa said once that the last election, so in 2022, was mainly determined not by doctrine, not by ideology, not by strategy, but by the essential figure of António Costa, that was the prime minister. So, in a sense, Marcelo Rebelo de Sousa, the president, commented that last elections were more like a referendum on António Costa than anything else. So, but once António Costa went out of the political landscape due to the scandal that you just referred, that forced his resignation, apparently that unifying factor, António Costa, disappeared, and so PS returned to dark times. So in a sense, when people say, well, but did Marcelo provoke a crisis? No, I think that he just had the political instinct to understand that the country was changing, and the country changed.
Okay, interesting. We actually, absolutely need to talk about Chega a little bit, more here. What a rise. 2019, André Ventura was the member of parliament for his new party. Now we have 50 seats in the election. What part of Chega's electoral campaign resonated with the voters? And do you think some of the Portuguese voters, voted out of protest? Or do they really, want to embrace Chega's electoral program and its plan for the future?
Well, I think it's you would have to do an inquiry into each part person of Chega, but that would be too expensive. I don't know if it would produce results. Anyway, I would say that according to what we understand from the dynamics of this party, it's a mix of both things. So in a sense, we return to the beginning, change. Okay. Change was the big, okay? But let's have something that is not what it is. We are not discussing exactly what is the perfect model of society. What we are discussing is that we don't like this one. So that was the point of departure of Chega, and not wanting what it is. And of course, using a language that is not the normal language in Portuguese politics, rather straight. So they would go really for the jugular, for the
shock value.
Very, very, very much so. In a sense, comparing things to a sort of a garbage can, we need to put the bad things in the garbage can. It was more or less like that. Chega means it's enough.
Okay?
Right. Enough. On the other hand, they have a program. Okay? It's not only a pile of slogans. They have a program. The program, contrary to other so-called identitarian and populist parties in Europe, it's a program that is pro-European, so pro-European Union.
Okay.
It's pro-Euro.
So this separates it from some of the other right-wing parties in Europe.
Mostly. So pro-European Union, pro-Eurozone, pro-European currency, pro-NATO, pro-Israel.
Okay.
So totally condemning anti-Semitism, and in this new division that we had since 2022 or 2014, very much pro-Ukraine. Not only pro-Ukraine in the sense of advocating political help to Ukraine, diplomatic help, but also military help. And one thing that maybe people didn't notice, Chega was the only party in parliament to propose formally for Portugal to break relations with Russia and to consider Russia a terrorist state.
Okay.
Probably people don't know that, but that puts them in a class apart in what we call the phenomenon of call it radical right in Europe.
And so from this point forward, what's Andre Ventura's strategy in dealing with Luis Montenegro? He seems like he wants to be, recognized. He wants to contribute and be part of the government. How's that going to work out for him? Do we have any indication yet?
Well, that's the devil that is in the details. I mean, one thing he made simple, and he made it very clear, and he said it some days ago in an interview. He said, sooner or later, I will become prime minister. Sooner or later, I want to be a prime minister. But for now, he has to know how to coexist with the PSD and AD, okay? And what he says, basically, is if they accept some of the principles that we really find fundamental, like equalization of salaries and subsidies for all security forces, more discipline in immigration policies, a tax reform that would not tax so much the middle class, and wages from work, pensions. He wants to increase pensions for old people and retired people. So all this kind of be considered like fundamental. He says if PSD puts that in its program, governing program. So not talking anymore of the electoral programs. They're talking of
governing the country. Yeah.
Yeah, and if it translates these principles into a budget, we will of course negotiate to support it. But one thing he said is that he would like for PSD to acknowledge formally that these principles are shared between them and us. So, and that's the detail I said, and the devil is the detail.
Right.
That PSD will, of course, accept some of these principles, but I don't think they will be ready to say, well, we are doing it because Chega told us to do so. I mean, I don't think that PSD is in the condition to acknowledge a formal connection to Chega, even if it's only a connection in saying, okay, we talk to them and we accept their principles. That's okay.
Great. All right. Looking a little bit to the forward. Actually, before we go there, let's actually talk real quick on some of the smaller parties. You mentioned them. But parties like the communists who've been a part of Portuguese politics since for a long, long time, and the left bloc. Do you see signs that support for some of these far left parties are starting to diminish?
Well, you can consider both of them left, but they are from two different families. I mean, Communist Party is a traditional inheritor of Stalinist, pro-Soviet, etc. Principles, although they claim that they are only a national party. And I would say that lots of their expressions, lots of their principles, lots of things they say could also look like very conservative from a point of view of the right. The problem is there is always a suspicion that the Communist Party would always approve all the things that happened in Europe during Stalin, that this Communist Party never acknowledged as crimes. It only acknowledges sometimes as deviations or errors, but never crime. The word crime was never used. It looks a bit like how the new Chinese communist generation regards the Mao Zedong time. Okay, usually they don't call it crime, the Cultural Revolution, but some sort of mishap or whatever. The left bloc is a different family. The left bloc doesn't come from the traditional Stalin pro-USSR policies. It comes from the Trotskyite view of things. Okay. So what before the Fourth International. After they muted into a sort of a new left type of ideology and discourse, but most of them are in a descending trajectory. More dramatic for the Communist Party, as you said. Communist Party was very relevant in Portugal from 74 until, let's say, 91.
Right.
It managed to get more than 1 million, if I recall, 200,000 votes in Portugal in the old times. Now it has around 200,000. So it was a big defeat. Even the communists say, okay, we are not happy with these results, but we are the force of resistance, and we didn't disappear. So they are happy that they didn't disappear.
Very interesting. Okay, coming back to the new government being formed, what would you consider going to be the first big test? Will it be the next year's budget, or will it be some of the campaign promises? What do you think is going to be the big issue that's going to see if this thing can work, or if there are more troubled waters ahead?
Well, I see the troubled waters ahead. I mean, but if you are a good sailor, you would not fear anything. But the problem, there are three main challenges that we have to understand. Our Constitution tells us in what circumstances a government can fail. There are three circumstances. First one, when it presents its program, the program doesn't have to. But there is a motion to reject the program of government. The government will fail if this motion gets the majority of votes in Parliament. So okay. It's the only constitutional case where a government fails even before starting to govern. Okay, so it looks like it's aborted in that sense. The second occasion is if a censorship motion is approved also by a majority.
Okay,
and the previous party already said that it's going to present a censorship motion. The third thing is if a government presents a vote of confidence, and if that vote of confidence is rejected also by a majority. Okay, so
great.
We have to know if any of these three moments happen. I think that the program will pass. That's my guess. I don't see Chega joining a rejection vote, but I mean, the worst case scenario would be if PSD suddenly would start to insult Chega, saying we don't want anything with this, and you think that you are the same as the left.
Okay,
that would be a catastrophic option for PSD. Then the next challenge will be budget. Okay, so the national budget will have to be presented, and there you have to include economic measures and political measures that have economic impact. That's where I see probably more trouble between Chega and PSD. There is going to be a round of negotiations, several rounds, and that's where I think that the thin ice will start to break, or as you said, the troubled waters will start to reveal themselves more and more.
Fascinating. Okay, before we close up here, just some related issues. So we have a new government, and how do you think this is going to change or not? Portuguese foreign policy. Obviously, we're coming from this side of the Atlantic Ocean, and so transatlantic relations are important to us. We have the 75th anniversary of NATO coming up. We have the summit happening. Portugal is a founding member of NATO and a proud member of NATO, but let's be honest, has not been on the leading edge of defense spending. But all that aside, what consistencies or changes do you see in Portuguese foreign policy in the near future, especially for transatlantic relations?
Well, the main verification we have to do, and this has to do about facts, not only intentions, is that the two main parties, so PS, Socialists, and PSD, the Social Democrats or the center-right, they both agree on most of the topics of the transatlantic alliance. They are pro-NATO, they are pro-European Union, they are pro-US, they are pro-UK. They consider Portugal not only as an European country, but mainly an Atlantic country. And they will continue what we call the strategic triangle, which is, in a sense, good relations with the United States, good relations with the Portuguese-speaking countries of CPLP that are spread around the world, and more attention to European Union politics. It's curious that all the right parties from those families I refer are all more or less equal in these principles. All of them say that they believe in these principles, and they believe in one principle that touches one thing we said. They want for Portugal to be more and more relevant, both in NATO and in the European Union. Okay. So, for Portugal to be more relevant, of course, Portugal will have to present ideas, we'll have to present actions, we'll have to be available, and we'll have to deal with so many things that only thinking of that gives me a headache.
Great. Another event coming up are the European elections in June. So what do you think is going to be the result of the European elections with this national election just happening? Do you see similarities in voting? Are you expecting the same rates of voting? Do you think abstention will be high? Any insights on that?
Well, abstention in Portugal in European elections is always the highest of all elections we have. So usually people, either they don't understand what are the powers of European Parliament, or they don't care. So basically what they think is that who negotiates European policy is government and not exactly the members of European Parliament. There is another problem this year, is that the elections are going to be on 9th of June, which is just
before the national holiday.
Yeah. So there is always the fear that people will mix politics and holidays and will just exile themselves from the big cities and the places of voting. Let's see. But on the other hand, people are more and more politically motivated to show that change that I said is going to take place. So probably, look, I'm not going to bet my country home in this, as Richard Nixon would say, but I would suspect that maybe abstention is not going to be so big, even with today's, because people are more. But if you've been following the trend of European Union polls, what European Union polls show us is that in all countries in general, participation is going to be higher. For one reason, Europe is worried about lots of things, economic, political, etc. And the balance of power in Europe will probably change, maybe not so much, but I see one big winner, which is the parties that will be close to Chega. They will not go into first place, but they will continue to be the third place.
Right.
The center-right, I think, will conquer a majority, but only a relative majority. And the second ones will be the Social Democrats. Who is going to be, I think, down are the Liberals. That's what the polls show. But look, things can change until June.
Great. Well, I think we're out of time, Nuno. It's been a fascinating time to be an observer to Portuguese politics, and I thank you for your analysis and your insights on it. And I look forward to watching this unfold over the next few weeks, and we might be having another conversation. You never know.
Yeah, and good luck for the Atlantic Council. We also follow your activities here.
Okay, thank you very much once again, and I look forward to talking with you again soon.